Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Gershon with another BetterHealth webinar. I'm just thrilled to have Joshua Yang, who is the CEO of a truly groundbreaking company, Gyphic Biotechnologies. And I think today Gyphic is representing a new era in drug discovery tools. It's an area which I think is reshaping how we're going to look at the entire space. Its poster child really is down the road in this process in silico, which is now advanced drug discovery technology, bringing the first drug to market using AI technology in 30 months, from drug targeting to commercialization. I think Joshua is a visionary. He is a scientist. The company is a spin out of MIT, and he has been recognized by Forbes as a 30 under 30. We're here today really to celebrate entrepreneurship, leadership, vision in an ecosystem that BetterHealth believes is an open source healthcare ecosystem that recognizes these qualities in emerging company CEOs and in CEOs in general. I think today Joshua is going to talk about the journey from being a scientist to being an entrepreneur and a leader, and what does that entail. He's also going to talk about the innovation, which is just absolutely breathtaking. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the future and what does this mean for the healthcare system in general, and where is an innovative tool company for drug discovery positioned to reshape our healthcare system as science, medicine, and technology come together with amazing CEO leaders like Joshua. Before I introduce Joshua, as I always do, I want to thank everyone so much for your support. Incredible contributions from so many people all across the world, in fact. We have people from almost every country. Please, when you sign on, please let us know where you're signing on from. If you have a question, we'll try to answer it today. If we don't answer it today, please put your email in so we can send you an answer if you'd like us to send a response back. But without the support of the people like yourself, we would not have the incredible momentum that we're seeing here. So without further ado, I really want to introduce you to an outstanding leader, a visionary, an entrepreneur, and a scientist, Joshua Yang. Please tell us a bit about yourself and your journey and your incredible company, Gyphic Biotechnologies.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here on the show. You know, what you mentioned about entrepreneurship, leadership, collaboration, and innovation as being highly important in the life sciences, medicine, and biotech. I really see that here as well on the show. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak with you all, speak with you. Gyphic Biotechnologies, we are a next generation protein sequencing company. What that means is we are developing machines that enable researchers to study the proteins in your body at a very high level of detail. Proteins are made of amino acids, a chain of letters essentially, and we are able to parse out each letter in the chain, similar to spelling a word from a dictionary or spelling out the letters and words in paragraphs. And so we believe that this tool will help us understand the proteins that cause disease and perhaps also the proteins that can help us alleviate disease. So happy to share more about my journey as a scientist and now today as CEO and co-founder of Gyphic with you all.
Fantastic. So let's dig a little bit into, the transition from being a scientist, is an MIT spin-off or spin-out company. What was it like, first in the academic setting and the people around you, doing amazing things? It must have been somewhat of a challenge to decide, do you want to stay in academia? How much time in academia? tell us about the motivation to move into a whole new space and the things that were going on, psychologically, emotionally, that you had to deal with, which, you're not really trained formally to be a CEO.
Oh, you're absolutely right. When I first started in my MD PhD program, I had no vision of becoming an entrepreneur. I fully thought I was going to be this MD PhD academic professor in a research institution, going into the laboratory to develop novel therapies or diagnostics that I then would hopefully one day be able to use myself in the bench side in the hospital with patients. So that was my grand vision. No intention of starting companies, bringing technologies outside of academia into industry, none of that. But after starting research in the laboratories, in the program, I came to realize that innovation in academia is sometimes slower than what one would hope, right? People talk about the ivory towers of academia, where a lot of research gets conducted, never to be actually used outside of academia and actually applied to the lives and health of patients. And so I decided that I wanted to do something quicker than the generally 8 to 9 year MD PhD program plus X number of additional years of residency or postdoc. I wanted to do something that would enable me to use my talents and skills immediately towards helping innovation in the life sciences and healthcare and ultimately help benefit patients. And so it was a hard decision. I was doing my MD PhD at Johns Hopkins, and I think unlike some of the other schools, perhaps like those in the Boston area or those in the San Francisco Bay Area, I think Hopkins is really rooted in tradition. And so there was much less entrepreneurship there as opposed to purely academic careers. And so for me to go take a leave to focus on entrepreneurship in business was definitely an outlier case. And I felt, it was a very difficult decision to make, but I had determined that my dream in life and in my career was not specifically to be an MD PhD scientist, but it was to create innovation in healthcare and the life sciences. And so even though I changed paths, I was still on the path to the same dream I had before.
Fantastic. I will ask you if you can articulate it. The webinar here is part of a shout out for people to inspire them to think about where they want to go in life and to create. Is there something that you want to tell young entrepreneurs who may be coming down the same path as you about one thing that they should focus on in their decision-making process?
Yeah, I would say don't do entrepreneurship for the sake of doing entrepreneurship, right? Especially in the life sciences, where your development times for a therapeutic or for a diagnostic and the regulatory approval timelines for all of these things, these can take many, many years, can take over a decade. And so really figuring out what you're passionate about, right, and something that you're willing and want to do for extended periods of time will be really important in order to be successful. If you just focus on doing entrepreneurship for the sake of starting a company, then I think you'll quickly find that perhaps it was not the right fit, and then you'll feel burdened by the work that you have to do, because being an entrepreneur is a lot of work, right? But if you find out what you're passionate about, then you'll want to do the work.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've started 6 companies. I've been fortunate to have 6 exits. When I started my first 2 companies, I was of the mindset, I didn't see anything except what my vision was. And there was really, from my perspective, was no reason for me not to go full steam ahead, no matter what, which meant, working at 1, 2, and 3 o'clock in the morning, on a regular basis. Now, that I've done quite a number of companies, both personal startups as well as being the CIO, of the fund, where we did 69 investments in our first fund, I find that the key thing for me now is collaboration. Because you don't have to run up the steep mountain. You can have people assist you. You don't have to crash through the wall. You can build a bridge around it. So I would like you to speak a little bit, before we get into the technology aspect of the company, about the ecosystem that you're around. You're out on the West Coast in California, a tremendous ecosystem out there, both in terms of academic institutions, accelerators, industry leaders. What would you say to the young entrepreneurs out there in terms of the role of collaboration and partnership, and those abilities to bring people in and enroll them in your idea?
Yeah. No, I think that collaborative aspect is one of the main reasons that we have, set up some shop in the SF San Francisco Bay Area in California, because, as you said, collaboration is of the utmost importance. We are in an incubator space where there are 40 other startup companies where we share ideas, thoughts, lunch with each other, right? It's really a collaborative environment, and it helps facilitate both the scientific and the creative process. I think that's important in biotech and life sciences startups. Of course, just in the broader area, we have access to the sharp minds of the academic institutions like UC Berkeley, Stanford, UCSF. And then there's so many accelerator programs, as you mentioned as well, that are willing to provide assistance to early stage startups, connecting them with mentors who have experienced success in their startups like yourself, and who are willing to provide that advice to young entrepreneurs who may be first-time CEOs or have their first time as a job in a business or in a startup. And so certainly I would say collaboration is the most important thing in terms of the success that we've achieved today, and I assume we will continue to achieve.
It's great to hear. I look at healthcare as a very complex problem. There's so many facets of it. Complex problems are not solved in a silo. Whenever we at Endeavor start a company, it's an iterative process where we go back and forth with industry, with investors, with entrepreneurs, and get real world feedback. So part of, I think, what the BetterHealth webinar series stands for is the underscoring and highlighting of this process, which I find a beautiful process. It brings people together to solve people problems. So now I'd like to shift a little bit and put your scientific hat on, because protein sequencing is not something that rolls off the tongue of everybody at lunch.
No.
Make it something that we understand, that is digestible, to understand the impact first, and then let's get into the science, because the science really is amazing. I'm getting a deeper dive, as we talked about before the webinar, into the whole field. It's really remarkable, and the ability to look at things at such a level and have control over building out a whole process for drug discovery that is novel. Let's begin to dig a little bit into that.
Yeah. No. So I think, right, protein sequencing, not really a household term at all. But there's a quote or an idiom that is a household phrase, right? And it's sort of like it's in your genes, right? So people always say that these qualities that you have, your height, it could be physical qualities like height, it could be emotions, all these things. A lot of it is impacted by your genes. And so many people today, right, are impacted by the recent discovery and engineering of DNA sequencing. And so every cell in your body has DNA, and this DNA contains the code, the blueprint, right, which tells you about who you are and everything that you can theoretically become. People say that your destiny is in your DNA. And today, DNA sequencing has revolutionized all aspects of healthcare and even consumer life. If you have cancer or you need to have prenatal screening for your new child, then you have DNA sequencing tests done to determine the origin of the cancer or whether your baby will have any potential defects. And today, people even get DNA sequencing done on their own. So I don't know if you've ever done 23andMe or similar tests, but those are all based on DNA sequencing or other highly massively parallel DNA testing, where it tells you things about your ancestry and about your health. And so really DNA sequencing has become this extremely ubiquitous tool. Protein sequencing, on the other hand, is still, of course, not a household name, but times are changing. And that's because while DNA has been this revolutionary, concept that people have been using in medicine and in healthcare, people have realized that, your DNA is relatively static. If you were to become ill tomorrow, your DNA did not change from today to tomorrow to make you ill. What has changed in your body are the proteins. And so if you think about what actually causes all of the day-to-day functions and malfunctions in your cells and in your body, it's the proteins doing all of the work, not the DNA. And so to understand disease at a deeper level, we need to understand the proteins at a deeper level. And so DNA is made up of a string of 4 letters, A, G, C, T. Proteins are also made up of a string of letters, as I mentioned before. There are 20 different letters that they're made out of. And understanding the sequence of these letters in the proteins can help us understand and decipher disease at a much deeper level. And so that is what we are aiming for. We're creating this tool that will give you out all the letters in the proteins in your body. And with those letters, scientists, clinicians, researchers, they can use this to make fundamental discoveries, such as discovering novel drugs, both novel drug targets, as well as actual therapeutic molecules that can be used for actual therapies.
Fantastic overview. I want to add one piece to that. As a physician, we look at pathways. These pathways are roadmaps for how proteins interact with the body. And proteins are on-off switches. Some of these on-off switches are for systems that are aberrant or abnormal, and some of them are for normal systems. And so one aspect of certain therapeutic modalities is to fine-tune our understanding of these on-off switches and these pathways. And certainly being able to refine with a closer and closer look about how these proteins do turn on and off switches for pathways is critical, so as to prevent aberrant cell formation or aberrant growth or the promotion of other downstream proteins which are being turned on or off, which regulate normal cell function. So putting this into a framework of systems, I think, is important. Understanding that, a drug target is part of this systematic approach to changing the pathways which control disease.
No, that's exactly right. Understanding how proteins turn on and off these pathways, right, I think is sort of the hallmarks of how today's diseases are treated. The vast majority of all drugs that patients take today target proteins, right? They don't target the RNA or they don't target the DNA. The vast majority target proteins, turning these proteins and these pathways on or off as a way to treat disease. And so you're exactly right that we need to understand how those switches work and how to modulate them better so that we can then create even better and more effective therapies.
I want to take just a second to thank once again our audience. We have people kind of dialing in from everywhere, and I just want to acknowledge them. So Jenny from New York, once again, thank you. Nikhil from Canada, thank you. Nancy from Connecticut, Oriel, thank you very much for dialing in. I didn't see a location there. JS from Milwaukee, Merrim from the good state of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for dialing in, everybody. And others, please let us know where you're calling in from, where you're dialing in. I think today is the first time that we've had a protein sequencing company on the webinar. So we're breaking ground there. But more importantly, I want to talk a little bit about the impact. What does this potentially mean? I mean, that's the excitement about entrepreneurship. There's limitless potential to be able to impact people. When I started companies in the past on my own, it was very much about creating better systems for people. So we looked at healthcare services and emergency room services, pain management services, and other services that were in need here in the tri-state area. I'd like to learn a little bit about your vision, because an entrepreneur is a visionary, hardworking visionary that has to put a lot of things in play, but a visionary. How do you crystal ball where your company is going to be 5 years from now? The collaboration partnerships that you would like, because this in part is a call out to build collaboration partners. And second, for the people watching, how do you think it might impact them in 5 years?
Yeah, no, all excellent questions. And, you know, one of the things that excites me the most is, of course, we are developing this platform ourselves, and we have ideas about how this platform, the protein sequencing specifically, can be used to discover new therapies or create new diagnostics. But we get reached out to by biopharma companies, other startups, academic research institutions, telling us about how they would love to use our technology for their specific applications. And I am always blown away by just how many different applications there are that people can think of with this platform. And so I know that the future for Gyphic will, in 5 years from now or beyond, will not be just to create this protein sequencing platform, but to use it ourselves to create value, create new markets, and really be able to transform healthcare and life sciences just in the same way that, for example, people say that the invention of PCR, or polymerase chain reaction, transformed all of molecular biology, or in the same way that DNA sequencing transformed all of healthcare. I'd like to show some slides, if possible, just about, I think some of the potential impact that our technology can do. Proteomics is the area that our technology in. Proteomics means the study of all proteins, and our platform will help us do that. And you may wonder, of course, what does this mean for patients, for people? And here are some areas where we believe our technology will be able to create a world where we solve so many of the challenges with today's chronic diseases, infectious diseases, and more. Proteomics could help uncover the biology of complex, multifactorial diseases such as Alzheimer's, for which, of course, there is no cure and for which there's no way to do early diagnosis. Proteomics could help us not only discover those novel therapies, but also diagnose patients at the earliest stages so that the therapies that we do have can be more effective. Our technology, we believe, will be able to be used in infectious disease like epidemic and pandemic settings by being able to detect biological toxins, of which peptides and proteins are the major class of these toxins, as well as infectious disease threats such as viruses or bacterial pathogens at their outset. We can even then predict the virulence of novel strains. Unlike with DNA, which is today how people track these epidemics and pandemics, proteomics can tell you the function and whether or not these, for example, in COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, the mutations enabled it to evade treatment and become even more virulent. And we can detect those sorts of information with a proteomic technology. And then engineering personalized cancer vaccines and antibody therapies for precision medicine applications. And again, another application of proteomics, where today we have one-size-fits-all treatment for oncology and for cancer patients. But with proteomics, we could develop therapies that are specific for each patient, thus ensuring the highest rate of success for treatment and remission and recovery. And then, of course, proteomics today, the largest sector is in diagnostics. And we believe that our platform will enable us to have novel biomarker discovery and panels of diagnostics for any type of complex disease, so that you can have one platform that can diagnose all diseases rather than needing one test for one disease as in today's healthcare system. And so these are just a few examples how we see our proteomic technology changing healthcare, being right, helping prevent pandemics, precision and personalized medicine, novel diagnostic applications, and more.
Absolutely game-changing. The ability to bring together entrepreneurs like yourself with this vision is only possible because the science really has just absolutely gone ballistic in terms of the discoveries that we have made. Being able to use innovation in an effective way to actually impact people is what Endeavor is all about, and what we're trying to build in this webinar series is a collaboration that recognizes people doing things for people to help people. There is, I think, a tremendous opportunity now with increased availability for financing in the healthcare space. We think we're in a 10 to 14 year growth cycle within healthcare. We think that these opportunities represent not just the shift in the United States, but a global shift that we're seeing to really improve healthcare and use the tools that we have to find new ways to help patients improve outcomes, find new therapies. Most importantly, this is all about addressing unmet needs, and then being opportunistic and creative and visionary to recognize the tools that are at our disposal can do that. There is a famous quote from Pasteur, "Chance favors the prepared mind." So I can't applaud you enough for making the personal leap into entrepreneurship. I think you're a humble person. You've understated the significant decision process. It takes years of preparation to get into an MD, PhD. It takes a certain, tremendous intensity and mindset to make the commitment to that multiple year process. Being able to adapt and pivot is the hallmark of a great CEO. So it is a great pleasure to get to know your company, to hear your vision, and to inspire other entrepreneurs. I would hope that people will reach out to you and reach out to me in a form of collaboration, over the next several weeks. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add, but feel free to comment as we close this webinar. In really what I consider hopefully the first of many, I would formally love to invite you back. We are hosting podcasts, which will be 15-minute versions, which will be designed for follow-up sessions starting in the fall. So thank you so much. Please, if there's anything that you want to say to the audience, please feel free.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. And I think the mission of what Endeavor and what this Healthcare Better Health series is doing is really important. And I'm glad to have been able to take a part in it and contribute to your mission.
Joshua, I really look forward to our follow-up conversation, following on with you with potential opportunities for those people out there who are investors to collaborate on the investment side to drive liquidity into great opportunities like Gyphic, I think are part of the ecosystem that we're building out. Joshua, stay on for just a second. To everybody out there, I also want to thank people recently who just signed in. Evan, Sayoko, Vicky, thank you so much for dialing in today. These are all contributors, by the way. Vicky will be on as a CEO in the next several weeks with another outstanding company that's a game changer. Evan has been on already. So thank you so much for participating. And Swati will be on in the next few weeks. Thank you again for signing in. It's a real pleasure speaking to everyone today. Have a wonderful afternoon. And please sign up next week for our another webinar on Tuesday at 12 Eastern Time. Goodbye, everybody.